everybody. We're going to do part 2 of Yoga for Runners. This is Ava. She's going to be our yogi for the day.
This is Corina.
All right, we're going to get started on our backs in Happy Baby. So any shape, just kind of laying on the back. And you want to bend your knees for Happy Baby and kind of add a little bit of gravity down towards, so it's almost like you're trying to put your kneecaps into your armpits if you could. And then you can always put a little bit of pressure down just to really sit the hip in the socket. And while you're here, again, if you can't reach your feet easily, you can hook, just kind of fish hook your arm around the backs of the thighs and draw them down. This is really nice just to release your back. And like I said, set your hips. And while you're here, I always take time to kind of curl and expand my toes, especially if you're on a longer run or your feet tend to get really tight and achy. All right, and then we're just going to let go of the legs and send them both skyward so the bottoms of the feet are up. And then just kind of pull the toes towards the kneecaps. Beautiful. And then bend your knees a little bit, and then you're going to take your right leg and cross it, or your left leg, and cross it over your right, and then bend both knees, bring them in towards the belly, and grab the shins. So you kind of curl up a little bit. So this is going to move the stretch now into the outer hips. One of the things that happens is that the tailbone's going to want to curl away from the mat. Your work is to really press your sit bones down and relax your shoulders. And you kind of want to fan out the shins if you can. How does that feel? Good. All right, and you give this a couple breaths, and then release, and then we're going to wrap the legs the other way. Grab hold of those shins. And then kind of anchor down. Same thing, you want to add just a little bit of gravity here, and you're looking for a sensation in the outside of the hips. So we're going to work a little of the hip flexors today. We'll stretch those out. We'll, of course, stretch out the hamstrings and the lateral parts of the hips today. All right, nice and easy. Let go, just kind of unwrap, and then just rock and roll a little bit back and forth. Pull the knees in and get a nice rocking motion. Nice. And then come on up to a seated cross-legged pose. Beautiful. And then from here, lifting the spine, just take a nice easy fold right over those shins. Yeah, and so you start to get heavy, let the lower back start to open up, let the hips start to open up. Beautiful. And then lift it up. So walk the hands back and lift up your spine, and then bring the knees in. We're going to come into a little boat pose. And then you're going to start to straighten one leg out, and then bring that right knee back in, or whatever one, and left. And you feel that in your hamstrings? Yeah. And that's what we want to start to do. We just want to give like a little fair warning to the hamstring stretches that are going to come later. And it's really nice to do it. Again, try not to round in this. We want a really nice open chest. And as Ava's doing, if you need to put your hands down, you put them down. Just one more. And then come back to that same seated cross-legged pose. This time, walk your hands off to the right side. And we'll start to open that left strip of side body. Beautiful. And then walk the hands back to the center. Come on up. Let's catch boat pose before we do the other side. And do a little back and forth, back and forth. There you go. Heart forward. Nice. And then try to remember which way you cross the shins. If you don't, it's no big deal. And then fold back over, and this time head on over to the left. So when you're heading towards the left, you really want to try to anchor that right sit bone down. This is where it's at for this pose. So of course you get a little lower back and a little side hip there. Beautiful. And then come on up, back to center, roll it up, last low boat pose. And if you have the range of motion and want to start to straighten the legs out a little bit more, go for that. Always a good idea to squeeze in a little core if it's there for you. All right, cross the shins again. And then this time roll over, we'll come to tabletop pose. So just right over. Probably have to wiggle back a little bit. And then just a little bit of cat and cow. So we want to drop and lift. Nice. Drop the belly, lift the heart. Really look up. Yes. So you really want that nice undulation for the whole spine. Obviously we pound a lot when we run, so really nice just to maneuver through both of those directions in the anatomy. Just a couple more. Beautiful. this next one, hold a straight spine, and then curl all 10 toes under, and then we're going to come to toe breaker. Again, not everybody's favorite pose, but definitely one for runners that's really important. And just to make sure, Ava's got her heels parked directly over the ball mounts of her feet, and that's the action that you want. And just pay attention, the little toe sometimes gets a little stuck back there, so if you take a moment and just kind of peel those toes out, that's going to make life feel a little bit better. Again, if this is way too intense for you, obviously not doing this if you've just had foot surgery in the last couple of months. Just let everything heal before you do something as dramatic as this. You can always put your hands out ahead. You can put a brick underneath your knees if that's what you need. But again, just modifying as body needs to. And get used to this one. This is a great time to take some time to get used to a pose like this that's kind of intense. And it takes time to grow on you. It's not love at first sight. All right, put your hands out ahead, come back to tabletop, and we always top the tops of or give the little tops of the feet I don't want to say a banging, but tapping into the mat, which is really nice. So while Ava does that, I'm going to grab an extra mat. If you happen to have one at home, this is going to be a calf stretch that we're moving into, which is also quite intense. But what I'm going to do is take this rolled up yoga mat and place it behind Ava's knees. And what she's going to do is sit back again, this time with her tops of the feet onto the mat. This is definitely for your calves. If you tend to have quite tight calves, this is a really nice way to kind of get in there and release that. If you're able to do this, if you have an extra mat, you can hold this for a minute to a minute and a half as your body tolerates it. It gets pretty intense. How does that feel?
It's hard.
It's not, this one is not easy. So try it out. If you tend to have really tight calves, this is a quick and dirty way to kind of get that meat loosened up in a hurry. But again, not for everybody, especially if you can't tolerate it. If your knees can't tolerate it, leave this one out. But I did want to offer that to make sure you know that that's available too. All right. Why don't you come on up? We'll remove the brick, and then she's just going to sit back on her heels just like she was, but without that. And what we're going to do is take the hand to the top or the front of the right knee and gently pull. Yeah, left hand can be out to support you. And that knee is going to lift up, so we're going to stretch the tops of the ankle, top of the foot. Kind of sit back a little bit more so you can get that knee a little higher. And then swap sides. Put your right hand out, lift up that left knee. Again, we want to get all the way to the tops of the feet. A really nice stretch for that ankle as well. And again, as long as it feels good and you feel like there's value in it, hold it for a couple of breaths. Nice. Beautiful. And then let that go. And then we'll roll it right back to tabletop pose. And just a little bit more cat and cow. And then we're going to do one little different variation. We'll hold a straight spine. So belly's pulled in, back is nice and straight, and then take a look towards your right hip, Ava. So she's sticking her left rib cage out when she does that, and then come through neutral, and then look towards your left hip. And then the right rib cage goes out. You don't want to dump into the side. You want this rib cage to expand. We want to get some nice lateral movement in there. Beautiful. All right, come back to center. And from here, we're going to go to gate pose, which is a really nice side body stretch. So what Ava's going to do is take her right foot out to the right. Your right toes are going to line up with your left knee, and then you're going to lift yourself up. And then she's going to keep her left hand at the hip for a moment and take her right hand down the right leg. Keep your belly in. And then left arm rises up like she has a question to ask, and we're going to take this over. So what you'll see as we do the other side is a big old side body stretch. We get a little bit of a freebie of an extra groin stretch here, but really nice for the side. And when you're running, right, we're always kind of shortening the sides. So an opportunity to open up the sides as well as the hip is kind of a 2-for-1. I'm all about it. All right, so coming back up through center, And then put your left hand down on the floor next to you, Ava. And then we're going to lift this right leg up. And then she's going to bend that right knee and grab hold of it. And then open up. You can tripod this left shin because your balance will be funky. What we're trying to do is open up the front here where things get really tight from pulling the knees up. Beautiful. How does that feel?
Good.
All right. And then nice and easy, let it go, come back down to tabletop pose. And then just kind of wiggle it out a little bit. I don't know if you want to spin around so you can do the other side, the left side, so we don't run into the furniture. But whenever you're ready, left leg's going to come out off to the left side. We'll set up for gate pose here. So lifting up. So let that hand trickle down the leg and take the top arm up and stretch over. One of the things that you want to be careful of here is that you're not coming forward. Ava's coming forward a little bit. Keep it leaning back. And you can even put your hand at the base of the skull and then let that stuff stretch. Do you feel that?
Mm-hmm.
Really important to get that whole gateway of the side. Again, we get the hip kicker here. Really work to keep this foot grounded and the arch lifted if that's possible at all. Really nice. But try not to turn down. Keep it open and therefore keeping the side stretch really significant. All right, right arm up and then hand down. And then we're going to lift that leg, grab hold of it, and curl it open. From tabletop, we'll go right into downward facing dog. So curling those toes under. And just a refresher, especially for athletes, it doesn't matter if your legs are straight or not. What does matter is a nice straight spine. And as athletes, what we do need is a nice long spine. And don't worry so much about the hamstrings. The knees can be bent, and then we're going to have you pedal it out. Just kind of swim it around. Don't worry about what it looks like. Really go for the feels on this one. You know, you can get into, as Ava's kind of swishing her hips back and forth, you can get into that outer hip gateway a little bit more. Beautiful. Nice. And then hold a little bit of stillness. And you do want to always try to work those heels down. If your heels are a mile away from the mat, don't worry about it. This is exactly what you need. Opening up the back body, really important. What we're going to have Ava do is take her right foot forward between her hands, and we're going to come into what's called the lunge. So if you don't have bricks at home, we'll keep your hands down on the mat. And you can put a brick on each side, and they go 3 different levels, so it depends on what you need, right? So we'll start here. So what we want to do is to have a really heart forward. So we really want to drag that anatomy forward and really want a buoyant back leg. Ideally, the heel is going to be parked over the ball mount of the foot. In the perfect world, don't worry about it too much though. And then from here, what we're going to do is lift the hips high, and then we're going to come back forward right where we were. We're going to do that just a couple of times. So lift the hips up, take the knee forward, lift those hips back up, and take the knee forward. This next one we're going to hold up, so hips high, bum high, take the hips high, and fold over. Now I'm going to have Ava step this left foot in a little bit closer and have her toes turn a little bit to the top edge of her mat. Not quite that much. Into here. And what you want to consciously do is pull this right hip back, and now your work is just to fold over that right leg. Do not lock your right leg out. You want this knee to be a little bit bent, right? We never want to force anatomy, but this is a great stretch for the back of that right leg, as well as the spine gets a moment to hang to. How does that feel?
Good.
All right. Nice. And then nice and easy, lift up your chest a little bit away from the thigh, step it back. You can get off the bricks if you want, or keep your hands on them. Nice. And then come back to downward dog, and then pedal that out. And then we're going to do the same thing with the left foot forward. So it's a high lunge, or a lunge that moves into what we call pyramid pose in yoga, which is really, really good for your hamstrings. So when you're ready, left foot forward between the hands. You can use those bricks, you can use books at home, you can use whatever you have around you to make it more comfortable. So first thing Ava's going to do is send her heart forward, yes. Pull the left hip back. Nice. And then now pick the hips up high and fold over that leg. And we give a little bit of movement. Pick the knee back over, lift up the hips high. Knee comes over the ankle. Keep rolling, a couple more. Hips up high, knee over, and then hips up high. Hold this one, and then you literally give up in the spine. You just like hang there. And then we're gonna step gently that right foot in a little bit and turn the toes out. Now the first thing that happens is that the whole situation back here gets a little funky. So what we want is that left hip pulling back so we get all of this anatomy nice and long so that hamstring can stretch. We always want the sensation in the belly of the hamstring. If this gets you in your butt or the back of the knee, bend your left knee more or lift up your hands higher on a higher prop. You don't ever want straining at the ends or the attachment points of the hamstrings. We want a nice healthy stretch back here. Beautiful. And then lift up the chest and then step it back to dog. You can get off those bricks. And then we're going to come forward to a plank pose, so right to the top of a push-up. We always look ahead, don't look underneath. That stretches the whole body. And then nice and easy, come all the way down to your belly as you exhale. Beautiful. And then keep the hands by the ribs a little bit. And then lift up, nice easy Cobra Pose. So shoulder blades are back, really nice, again, for front body to open up. And you don't want to squeeze your butt too much here, otherwise your lower back's going to hurt. And then exhale, take it back down, and then put your left forearm parallel to the top edge of your mat. So take that forearm, and then you're going to take your right hand and reach for your right foot. And then you're just going to work that heel down. One of the things to watch out for is that that right knee doesn't splay out. So this is another nice quad stretch to get. This left foot relaxes. Do you feel that in the front? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then just let go. Swap sides. Right forearm comes down. Grab hold of the left ankle. And again, it's a heel to butt. If you're super flexible, the heel works its way down to the outer hip. But just watch that the knee doesn't splay all the way out to the left. We want to keep that nice alignment to maximize the stretch that's going on there. Beautiful. Give it another breath. Great. And then exhale, let go. And we're going to press back to child's pose. Always a good idea to do at some point. So knees are wide, big toes are touching. Again, if you've got some issues where your knees are like, no, that's not going to happen, you can always sit on a brick or a bolster so you're not down as deep. Modify it. There's always a way to make it work for the body that you're in on any given day, so don't worry about that. We'll just give this a couple breaths. Really nice for the hips, really nice for the low back. And your forehead touches the mat. And nice long spine here. Beautiful. Really nice for the tops of the feet. They get a sweet stretch. All right, now lift up back to tabletop. Bring those inner knees together. And then just kick your feet off, and we're going to just finish up with a couple of stretches on your back. If you don't have a brick that's handy, just find something that resembles this size for this next stretch. And you can roll onto your back. And then set up like you were going to do a bridge pose in yoga. So her feet are down, and we're going to lift up and place this brick underneath her sacrum. So when I cue this in a public class, I will just say usually place it beneath where your belt would be if you had a belt on. And Ava's going to take her right knee and bring it in towards her belly. And this left leg is straight, and the left heel is touching down on the mat. If this is too intense for your left hip flexor, what you're going to do is bend this left knee a little bit and soften it up. But with this leg straight, what she can do now is really stretch out the front of that left hip. I love this stretch for hip flexor. It puts you automatically into a little bit of a back bend, so you're really starting off stretching from a place of opening. And then we'll just swap legs. Always nice and easy, right? So this heel is heavy. If you have somebody with you that you're stretching with, they can add a little bit of pressure here on the front of the hip. Do you feel that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you want to hug that top knee in to a place that's tolerable, but still giving you a significant stretch. Again, really nice one to hold if you have some extra time. You can pick any of these stretches and kind of sit with them and hold them a little bit longer, especially if it's in an area where you need a little bit of more attention. All right, nice and easy. Bend the bottom knee, bring that in, press down through the feet, and then just slide that brick off to either side. And then bring your knees back in towards your belly. Give them a hug. And then just a little spinal twist. Let both knees in unison drop to the right and goalpost your arms. Let's move that out of the way. And you want the chest to be nice and open, right? When we're running, especially when things get a little tired, you tend to get a little bit rounded and a little kyphotic in the back. We want a nice open chest with open lungs, really important. And then knees up and over, drop them to the opposite side. And they're just stacked. And you want nice opening here. Nice big breath in and out. This also gives us a stretch right there. Beautiful. Bring those knees up and over, back to center, and you can rock yourself up. And take a moment to sit, and hopefully those stretches will help. Namaste and have a great day.